arrange things here now. Time is now 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sean Peterson. Here. Lisa Carrot. Here. Linda Stardens. Here. Steve Gorman. Don Cavella. Here. Linda Fedor. Here. Stephanie Walsh. Here. Ted Dumaine. All right. Our first order of business is a review of the meeting minutes for May 20th. Are there any corrections need to be made, or are there any omissions? All right, motion has been made by Don to accept the minutes, seconded by Lynn. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Abstained? All right, that motion carries. Our first order of business will be citizens' participation. If you have something that you would like to share at this time, please use that microphone and let us know if you are a town resident.
What do you want? Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Finance. I have no pleasure in being here tonight, but I have a history that I have to recite to you all. I was going through this budget again, and when the budget failed, and something got by me, and I want to bring it to your attention. There was somewhere along this budget process, $1.2 million was put into this budget by someone. I don't know if the Board of Selectmen asked for an appropriation of $1.2 million out of the fund balance, or what happened. So my question to you, Mr. Chairman, is, did the Board of Selectmen request an appropriation of $1.2 million?
No, it was part of a discussion on how to bring the levy down, and we utilized $1.2 million from an excess of the fund balance, because at that point the fund balance was at 26%.
So the Board of Selectmen did not ask for the appropriation?
They did not ask for the appropriation. Okay. They made a comment about the appropriation.
Fair enough, sir. You realize the Board of Finance does not have the authority to appropriate money. You have authority to approve an appropriation. You have an authority to reject appropriation, but only the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education have the authority to request an appropriation. The Board of Finance has no authority to appropriate money. You have no way to raise taxes. You're not a taxing board, okay? So under our charter, under state statute, it's the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Education that have authority to appropriate money, whether it's out of the fund balance or whether it's a budget that's being made up and brought before you. I don't point that out to embarrass anybody, but I'm going to tell you, it's illegal. It's an illegal appropriation. It's not been approved by where steps of our charter approve it, to approve it. You have a right to approve it if it's requested, or you have a right to reject it. You have no authority statutorily to appropriate money. So you need to make a note of that. The other thing, what caught my attention, when I was reading that revenue side, I saw that 1.2 million. I said, what the heck's that about? And then I see underneath it another appropriation. And that added up to what the expense side, 546. So when you add these together, you're actually taking $2,267,000 out of the fund balance. Do you all realize next year, I'm not running for nothing, guys, not yet, okay? But the bottom line is this. Do you realize that you were digging yourself a hole, and you've been digging it for 5 or 6 years now? We're spending, sir.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
If we're
Say again, sir?
If we are digging a hole, how do you explain the growth of the fund balance over the past 5 years?
Every year, you've been appropriating money out of the fund balance.
You're not answering my question. How do you explain the growth of the fund balance?
How do I explain the growth?
Yes.
Okay, let's step back a minute. I had a question asked to me, Paul, what happens when you have too much money in the fund balance? Under a normal situation, we haven't dug a hole already, okay, and everything being equal, you would reduce the mill rate. You would reduce the mill rate. You can't reduce the mill rate, you can't pass a tax increase in Plainfield. You're going to the savings account, guys. Now, I know you weren't here in the 90s when we had nothing. I took over a town, it was $1 million in a hole, 3 years running, okay? We appropriated money to build a new Shepherd School, appropriated money to build new industrial park. Our bond rating stunk. We had no money, but we had trends where they always went to the fund balance in order to pass a budget. That doomed us. You realize, like, I financed $30 million and I had to insure our bonds. That's not normal. When you have a good bond rating, you can sell your bonds. I had to insure them to make sure the buyers weren't stiffed and the county pays debt service back. You see, I understand non-reoccurring debt. I think I said this last week. You know, you want to buy a truck, a police car, it's a non-reoccurring expense, okay? Unless they buy another police car, but you can manage your fund balance that way. You can buy some things. It's good to be in that position. We've been spending money, guys. We've been spending too much money. We got some good things happening in town. I think that in time, some of this, you can't be budgeting, well, I don't think you're doing it right now, I hope not. You can't be budgeting money you don't have, okay? You can't do that. I'm telling you all, too many sacrifices have been made over the years by boards of finance, boards of education, and they understood why. Even though sometimes we're not popular, it would be wonderful if you could lower the mill rate, but you can't right now. You need fund balance money to actually pass a budget. Now, if you pass the last budget with 3/4 of a mill, not only did you spend $2,267,000, if the 3/4 of the mill passed, there was $925,000 more money. So the actual new spending was $3,192,000. What are we doing here? Again, I don't want to be on a television show. I'm trying to appeal to you people that we got to knock it off. Transfer station, $200,000. Road construction, $300,000. You got town aid money and local capital improvement money that equals $467,000 you can use for paving roads or whatever you want to do in the roads, okay? You give $100,000 out of the fund balance, there's $200,000 you don't have to spend, okay? There's $200,000 you don't spend in road construction. You can go and take the transfer station out, there's $400,000 you don't have to spend. If we don't reverse this, you guys, I don't know how many's going to run for re-election, what's going to happen. I'm telling you, I'm not being emotional. I'm telling you, I'm trying to get your attention. That's what I'm trying to do. Now, I put the numbers out in front of you only because the question was asked me, what do you do when you have too much money in the fund balance? Well, obviously, you don't raise the mill rate. I'm not for tax break. Okay? I'm not for giving money back to people. Hold the line, live within the line. If you have more than you need, the normal thing would be to reduce the mill rate. That would be the normal thing. You wouldn't need as much. We're not doing that. I'm going to leave it at that. Guys, it's a very serious situation they're in because down the road, the school's going to need some new heating systems, and there's some other things the first selectman got planned, and you're going to go out to bonding. And believe me, you're not going to get good rates. You know, you've got creditors, you got Moody's that's going to find out what you're up to. They're going to see this. And they're going to say, well, if we sell these bonds, if the town of Plainfield got the ability to pass a tax increase, and if the answer is no, the interest rates are going to be higher. They're going to be high. I'm not saying you're going to have to insure your bonds like I have to. I took over a mess with a bunch of good people, good board members, good people that worked hard to put policy procedure into place. I know you got a tough job. You but you gotta get good counsel here. Next year, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I said enough, I wish you well. Good night.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Carla Desjardins, Plainfield Pike. I've been here at the past two public hearings, and I know this is not a public hearing. But after the last public hearing where the board didn't meet after that public hearing, I kind of questioned what the purpose of the public hearing was besides legal requirement, right? So I wonder if, cuts are going to be proposed tonight and then we go to public hearing, will there be a discussion after the next public hearing so that people know that you considered what they said at the public hearing? At the last two public hearings, I've talked about what cuts I felt could be made. I think this is a bloated budget in some areas. I think it's important that we think about the wants and the needs, and just from the public reaction to the vote, they are looking for a zero, or as close to zero as you can get it. When we look at what people vote for, they want to see care and concern out of their elected officials. So the past two public hearings, I have asked the Board of Selectmen to take a pay freeze, because as a public servant, they need to show that you have care and concern about the people. And if you are asking the people to pay taxes, it is unfair to give yourself a pay raise that covers your taxes. So I think a good step in showing good faith to the public would be for the Board of Selectmen to take a pay freeze. That will be a small cut, and someone will say it's just pennies in a bucket. Well, fill a bucket with pennies and see how many they add up. So if we can shave from some areas just small amounts, those amounts are going to add up. And that's what we have to do. We have to look at this budget and say, instead of spending $10,000, could we spend $9,000? And just see areas that can be shaved down slightly to help the people. When I was looking at the Board of Education budget, there's $1.5 million in supplies. Now those supplies are not itemized, so I have no idea what they are. But I'm concerned about it because every year we have teachers who go out with supply lists, and we are helping teachers supply their own classrooms. Then we have supply lists that go to parents, because the parents are required to supply for their children. So I'd like to know where that $1.5 million is going if parents are supplying children and teachers are supplying classrooms. I think these things are important. The question I get from everybody is, where is my money going? And I can't explain where it's going, but I'd really like to try to help explain where it's going. There was a post today about the assistant superintendent position that's been vacated, and there was an informational post explaining what that position is and what it does. We need to do that more often. We need organizational charts to see who are the town employees, what are the functions, what are the positions. There's a concern that there's too many administrative positions at the top. As we all know, administrative positions come with hefty pay to begin with. So then when you have a 3, 4, 5% raise on hefty salary, it compounds, right? And people in this town don't make that kind of money. So when they see that people are getting $10,000 raises, $3,000 raises, they look at it and say, that's not what I get, right? So they're paying for the raises of those other people, not understanding what these people do and why is it important. And maybe it's not, but those are the tough choices and decisions we have to do, and we don't have all the information to make them. I know as the Board of Finance, you're just going to give the number, right? And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education to look at those numbers and say, where can they cut? And I'm saying shave off areas. Don't look to whole cut certain things when you can shave off and make those pennies add up. People are looking for just some kind of example that you understand what they're going through, all right? I think the no vote shows that they're not going to accept this. We're going out a third time. I don't know what that vote will be, but I can probably say voter turnout's going to be lower. I think the trash question really upped voter turnout. So we're going to have a different group of people voting at the next vote on June 16th. So I'm just asking the board to look, get as close to zero as you can, because that's what the people are looking for when you talk to them. And then it's up to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education to justify and defend their budgets. If you can explain why these items are important in your budget, you're the salesperson. You have to sell it to the public. Explain to them how you're putting their money to good purpose and good use. Because if you do that, they will vote yes. But that hasn't happened. And it's obvious from the reaction to the budget votes that that's not happening. So there needs to be better explanation of where tax dollars are going, because if people believe it's being put to good use, they're going to vote yes. Thank you.
Name's Trav Harmon. I live in Moosup. I have 4 children in the education system of Plainfield. 401ks, savings plans, even a mattress at your house. We save for potential issues. We have insurance, health insurance, piggy banks. We were told to have money set aside for a rainy day. I own a business in Massachusetts. Every $1,000, $5 is taken out by the state for skill investment. What am I saying? Stop cutting the Board of Education. It's an investment, not a liability. I voted yes on everything except the trash. 2, keep our future safe and sound. We can't keep cutting the Board of Education and hoping our kids develop the skills on their own. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. The police, for example, they understand the prison pipeline. Low-skilled, uneducated people create problems because they don't know how to deal with stuff. By educating, keeping their skills up, giving them the ability to succeed, giving them the way to succeed, it saves money. The police don't have to arrest people who aren't doing anything wrong. They're not stealing. Stop cutting the Board of Education. Yes, cut everything else. I don't mind if we have to cut some stuff. Okay, maybe get a used vehicle for something. Maybe we cut something from the town. Trash, I don't know the details of that, but figure it out. As a parent, I do not want the Board of Education cut anymore. I don't. It's nothing but problems in the future. And just look around. Look at all of the failed towns in the United States. What is the common thing? People didn't want to bring their children here. Why? The towns are dead because they can't, there's no education, there's no future for them. Make a future for your children in Plainfield. Give them the skills, educate, give the teachers what they need, and cut it elsewhere. That's all I'm asking.
Please bear with me because I'm a little nervous. I don't like to talk in public. I'll talk to you individually, but in public, not cool. Good evening, Board of Finance.
Fix your microphone, we can barely hear you.
Good evening, Board of Finance.
I'll get it.
Good evening, Board of Finance. It doesn't look cool. There you go. I can talk louder. Okay. I can talk louder if I need to. Good evening, Board of Finance. I will keep my points direct and to the point. Our police department plays a vital role in our community in keeping us safe. The police department has already made cuts the last 2 budgets. If they are asked to make further cuts, it could mean staff reductions and no equipment investments. This will directly impact the community safety as well as our officers. Neither need to be a risk. Sorry, I get emotional because the thought of one of these guys getting hurt taking care of us is not okay. They have families too. If the Board of Finance requests additional cuts from the town budget, it is my hope that the Board of Selectmen will work to find other non-essential areas to make cuts that don't involve public safety. If they have to make more cuts, they could lose their tasers. We could lose staff. We cannot go any lower on our staff, people. These men are running skeleton crews, and we need more women involved in the police department. We can't bring on officers if we don't have the budget. We need to stay safe. They do their job. Thank you.
foremost to be transparent, and some of you may already know this, for people watching, listening, and some of those that are here. I am a Plainfield police officer, and my statement here tonight does not reflect the ideas or beliefs of the Plainfield Police Department, the town of Plainfield, or our collective bargaining union. Over the last several weeks, I've attended several meetings just like these and listened to the statements made by residents regarding their concerns over the budget. I've always tried to keep an open mind, but it has become increasingly difficult to do when we now face a third round of cuts, which I expect will impact the police department greatly. I am asking for no additional cuts to the police department's budget. We have already lost too much. Any further cuts would result in greater risks of officer safety concerns and put more strain on our officers. As it was, we didn't have much fat to cut out. At this point, we are cutting our critical equipment and services. Some things that we've lost so far, the red dot sites. A police cruiser. We are down several cruisers at this point, and with the delivery of cruisers often taking several months to take place, it is putting more strain on the cruisers that we do have remaining, never mind the amount of time it takes for our fleet mechanic to actually build the cruisers from the ground up. Supervisor promotion. For those of you that are aware, or that are not aware, the Plainfield Police Department does not always have a supervisor on shift at any given time. This cut inherently creates a liability to our agency and leaves some of our younger officers on shift with no immediate supervisor for guidance. Police pension. We have been cut quite a bit of money from our pension line item. At this point, and this is actually a question, is it possible to push off even more of the pension contributions to future years in lieu of cutting other necessary line items? With such a healthy pension fund, could this be split up over the next 2 years rather than this year or next year, or however, we were planning on doing it? But we've already slashed enough, but might as well, if we can save a couple other things, maybe we could spread it out over 2 more years. I don't know, it's just a general question, but we can get to that after. With additional cuts impending, I'm concerned that more equipment, training, and services will be affected. For example, our tasers are on the brink of failure. Losing these tools will result in officer safety issues and limit the tools available to them when an officer needs them. I am fearful that there may be cuts to training. In the ever-changing world of law enforcement, our officers are mandated to complete trainings in a variety of different subject areas. Limiting the training to just mandated requirements will be setting our officers up for failure and not affording them the opportunity to excel and grow in their careers. As I previously stated several weeks ago, I hope that in these next round of cuts, we do not lose the school resource officer. In a shared cost initiative to re-implement this position, I am more than confident that this officer will create a positive, lifelong impact on our students. Like I've previously heard, the purpose of having this officer is not to discipline our children or students, but to be a resource, a mentor, a person to trust when our students need them. This will in turn create stronger relationships between our teachers, our students, and our police department. In closing, I want to see Plainfield do well. I want to see Plainfield flourish. I want to see our local businesses flourish. I want to see our students and student athletes flourish. I have young children who will be starting school the next couple of years, so I do have a personal interest in this town. At the end of the day, I believe that we all want Plainfield to do well, economically, academically, continue to produce athletes who may continue on to colleges near and far. While I have heard residents calling on our town to tighten up their budgets and eliminate any wasteful spending, I hope that we can somehow, some way, find the best solution to support our students and teachers while doing it in a fiscally responsible manner. We will owe it to them to pave a path to succeed and one day replace us all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sam Darenthal. I at 47 Highland Street, forgot my address for a second. Over the past, so this is my second budget season in Plainfield, and last year I did a lot of just like listening and learning and some outcries of whoa, but it wasn't what I had hoped it would be. This year I've really worked on looking for ways to educate people, and our superintendent has looked for ways to educate people about what is in the budget and really breaking it down. Carla has posted agendas. I've had several conversations. I was at Moosip Elementary today at their field day, and there were several parents there. There was so much volunteer opportunity, and I hope that other people are, because at the rate we're going, we're going to need a lot of volunteers in our schools. is that we really do need to educate people what a referendum is. People didn't know what that was. They were like, oh, I saw a referendum, I didn't know what that was, and like they didn't even think to take the time to look up what it was. Um, these little things are things that we need to start educating people about, not just in a way that is, well, attend a meeting, you'll figure it out. People don't have time, and I get it. I do what I can when I can, and I ask questions, and I try to figure it out, and I try to teach people along the way. So one thing that Mr. Sweet brought up was that we're digging ourselves in a hole because we're using our fund balance, and then you were kind enough, Dean, to talk about why is our fund balance growing every year if we're digging ourselves a hole. And I quickly looked up. This is a curiosity, and I think something that we can teach people. So I'm hoping that you can address this in whatever way. But I'm looking at like the audits for the past few years, and I'll go from like, I don't went back to 2022, but it says that our fund balance didn't grow a large amount in that time, but then the next year it grew by 1.3 million, and then the year after that 1.9 million, and then most recently 1.5 million. And I'm wondering if we're taking from the fund balance, how does it grow? And if you could educate or just like explain how that happens in the financial sense for people to understand, because from like and this is where we want to get away from, right, is looking from like a household budget. If I'm able to put away 1.5 million, I shouldn't need it for the next year to offset the cost of an increase. And so I think that would be really great to address, and I'm also willing to help put together things. And I know it's not only the people I just named, there's several people out there who have been really looking at, I know Scott Sharwood, he changed the format of how he tells people about voting to be very fact-based and also like very attention-grabbing. And I think there's just some type of way that we can get information out to people so that they understand what's happening, so that we have less of this misinformation going around. And so I'm hoping that you when you have time, you can explain that, as well as if there's anything that anyone can do to help with this education, that you would call upon them to volunteer. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Finance. I'm Plainfield residents. Once yet again, my name is Chris Krusoff. I've been a Plainfield resident in Moosewood for 9 years. As you know by now, I've also been a teacher here in Plainfield for 8 years, and I've taught for 9 years overall. First, I want to thank all the town residents who voted yesterday, and thank you to the town hall employees and the Board of Education for advocating for your budgets. On the bright side, we went from 7.5% of the town voting to 11.8% of the eligible town voters. That's phenomenal growth. However, as a social studies teacher and Plainfield resident, I'm still disappointed in the voter turnout. The town has already cut $610,000 from its original proposed budget. Board of Education has already cut $880,000 from its original proposed budget. These are not easy cuts. However, even though the numbers show that as more and more voters turn out, they are more content with our budgets, the majority of voters still indicate it's too high. I've had residents tell me that they only want extra fat cut from the budget and that we have to be fiscally responsible. I do agree, but what the next round of cuts will do is eliminate positions. And since there will be most likely no wiggle room, as the 192 teachers in Plainfield go to negotiations, we will not be able to get pay raises like we should. And I've had some Plainfield residents tell me that they only want a fat cut, but that the teachers and staff should try harder to get raises. However, as we won't account for 75% of the budget, we can't advocate for a higher pay without a corresponding increase in the budget. So let's cut it more. I'm advocating for the Board of Education to fire all teachers, paraprofessionals, and all the staff. We'll be fine. We can find higher paying jobs in other districts or other towns or other jobs. This will save the town millions. Then we can have schools run and taught by town residents and volunteers. They apparently think they can do it cheaper and better than us, or that education doesn't matter. Either way, it'll work out well. Honestly, this is actually a genius plan, as they will realize in about 10 minutes that it takes certain amazing individuals to teach kindergartners, middle schoolers, especially 8th graders, and high schoolers who would rather be anywhere but there. Then they'll more likely give us a much needed raise while begging for us to take it back over. Satire aside, the following what I think are, as a resident educator, needs to have in light of these budget cuts. The school resource officer needs to be cut. The The residents have spoken. They don't give a hoot. And while it may seem like satire, the next part is not. All sports and extracurriculars need to be cut. These all use excessive fuel and employees' pay. If the residents feel that we spend too much money, sports literally have nothing to do with education. If we're already cutting educational technology and paper from our schools, then sports will save us significant money. If our Chromebooks and smartboards fail, and we don't have paper to print work in lessons, we'll at least need chalk to use on the boards. But the instructional supplies were cut already. So, sports should be eliminated so we can have funds to teach. I was previously kidding about renting the sports fields out to the local farmers, but why the heck not now? All town residents will feel the reverberations of these budget cuts. The impact of the Board of Education budget failing may not happen or be noticeable right away, but your future kids and grandkids will notice it. As PEA Public Relations Membership Chairman, I've been trying to convince teachers to stay, as many are looking to leave. They feel that residents don't support them, education, or their students. Based on how the population is voting and the lack of voter turnout, they may be right. I will say it over and over again. I love teaching here in Plainfield. It's not amazing paychecks. It's my amazing fellow educators to the left and right of me in my school are awesome students and are sure to go to help the next generations. But the town residents are making it harder and harder to love to teach here or want to teach here. Education, like protecting our liberty and constitutional rights as citizens, is not something that you invest in once and hope it goes okay. It's something that needs to be done again and again. Otherwise, the consequence will be dire for our town and country. Please stop cutting the budget again and again, residents. Otherwise, Plainfield residents will reap what they sow. Plainfield will slowly die and wither, and I know no one here or watching wishes for that. Thank you for your time.
Central Village. Last year I spoke before you. I said I'd check into the BOE budget even deeper, and Mr. Russo has helped me to do that this year because of the things he said at the microphone. So I'd like to share some of those things with you. But on the town side, I'm looking at proposed cuts that the first selectman gave us, and it's really sad. I mean, we're going into things that really shouldn't be cut. So I'm concerned with that. I'm concerned with the fact that out of our increases, you already took 60% of our increase, where the Board of Ed's increase, you took 44%. I don't know where that 60-40 went, but it's gone. So you can do the math on that. So anyway, on the Board of Ed, last year the biggest thing for me was the increases, because you can't tell what the percentage of the increase is. So you have to do all the math yourself. So I went through every teacher, and I just found out there's more teachers than I thought. I thought there was 187. Some are paid by grants, so you don't know how much they're making. But a typical MA3, Master's 3, would make 4.2% increase. MA5, 6%, MA9, 7%, MA12, a 9%, MA13, 12% increase a year. MA14, it goes down to 3.2, big drop. And then MA15 is 2.5. And you would think, yes, that's the high end of the teachers, 80 to 100,000. But that 2.5 doesn't pan out the way I did an MA9, 70,000 at a 7% increase is $4,900 for that year. An MA15 making 90,000 at a 2.5% increase is $2,250. So the higher earners aren't making it because they're only getting 2.5%. These are just statistics going through the budget, like one of your members went through the town budget. You know, it's like, okay, so teachers that are from 40 to 60,000 would be an MA3 to an MA6, we have 50. Teachers that make 60,000 to 80,000, that would be MA7s to MA11s, we have 25. Teachers that make 80,000 to 100,000, which would be an MA12 or higher, we have 96. So we're top heavy on the top earners. More than half of, or just about half, are making 80 to 100,000 a year. So out of the 187 teachers that I thought we had, that I counted, we have proposed next year 68 students less than this year. School-age students, whether they're going Barrows, here, wherever, 68 students less. We have 1,874 students. That's one teacher for every 10 students. So that's just a fact. Another thing I learned, that we have 11 tutors in 4 of our schools. 9 full-time, 2 part-time. I don't know why we need tutors when we have so many teachers that are doing a good job. I don't understand it, but, and then the other thing I noticed was the courses that are not offered anymore. There's 37 courses that are not offered anymore. Not to mention the sports programs that are just gone. From what I can see in their program, they have football, baseball, basketball, soccer. That's about it. They don't even list JV sports, just varsity sports. I don't know if that's changed. I'm concerned music has been cut. There's no music theory. There's no fundamentals of music. There's no piano. CAD is gone. CAD 2 is gone. All these programs that would help our students are being eliminated. And even the sports, I would love to see the sports director bring it back. Because we used to have wrestling. We used to have tennis. We used to have programs here. Golf. You know, we're an alliance district now. So what's going on with the Board of Ed, you know, we have 11 positions. I think they cut 2 last cut. So we have 11 new positions on the Board of Ed side. So I just want to put those facts out there.
Peggy Gordon, 324 Pond Road. I don't think a Board of Selectmen should be up here talking about the school budget. That's the school's budget. We have three referendum questions every time we have a referendum on what should pass and what should fail. All right, I think we should be advocating, the Board of Selectmen should be advocating for their budget, not going on about what the school board should do. All right, the town still has a 7.49% increase, which comes to $997,000. It didn't pass by 154 votes. The school only has a 2.97 increase. Most people are getting a 3% increase nowadays for their pay, and they deserve it. Okay? That's a $133,000 increase. That didn't pass by 39 votes. Right? When we can't pass a capital improvement fund balance, we got a problem. Okay? That lost by 139 votes. All right, we really got to think of what we're doing here. Board of Selectmen needs to be advocating for the town, and the school board needs to be advocating for their own. We need to do a better job of informing the public on what we're doing, why we're doing it. I think the communication that we have is poor. We need to do a better job of making sure that the public understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we got there. All right, we don't do a very good job of that. Thank you.
Good evening. Matt here, Caruso. So, we are running out of time on this fiscal year, and that starts to become a pretty big issue because then we start going into the next fiscal year, and we still haven't rectified the mill rate situation, and we're going to have to start worrying about revenues again. Not that that's going to be a concern far from our minds going forward, but combined with the use of the fund balance towards operational funds into next year, we already have a massive issue of having to figure out next year's budget that we're, unfortunately, by using fund balance dollars, sort of making our own bed in that situation. There's a myriad of reasons as to why the fund balance could get to the reserve levels it was at. It's not always simply over-taxation. Sometimes we do have good years in the market and we earn those returns and those end up going to the general fund. But in the spirit of priority, we'll look at things one step at a time. And I think the focus right now clearly is going to be, what is the mill rate that will pass? And I think in the spirit of honesty, whenever we're looking at what the nominal increases in the respective budget proposals are, it's important that we throw both the percentage and the nominal full dollar value out there. I think the voters are well aware of the size difference between the two budgets, and I think that's why a lot of very well-meaning people still put the Board of Ed budget right in the crosshairs when talking about potential decreases. They're not doing so out of disdain for the school service all the time. I can't speak to all their experiences, but they're certainly looking at it from a pure dollars and cents perspective, and they do see the size of the budget for the services offered. But, like I said, the main point here, the mill rate movement that will pass. Now, if I had that kind of clairvoyance, rest assured I would have let you know weeks ago when I warned about timing and potentially kicking the can for discussions, because we would find ourselves in a situation where we are pressed for time to have to make very big decisions, where clearly based on the feedback from numerous community members, nobody's happy and nobody's going to be happy with where the budgets end up. It is part of the process, but that doesn't make it a particularly joyful one, I'll admit. By my quick math, and I'm sure Kelly will validate during the duration of your meeting, a proposed mill increase of only a half mill is going to require you to reduce the net increases by $365,000. A net mill increase of 0.25, so a quarter of a mill increase, would require you to reduce these budget proposals by $728,000. That's the range, I think, that we're looking at. Not recommending one or the other, but saying that's the scope and the gravity of the reductions in these increases that I think put you on the road to a budget proposal that will pass. And the sooner we get there, the better, because then we can start solving next year's budget problems ASAP. Thank you.
Anyone else?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just listening to the other speakers, I think it is important to point out that proportionally, the Board of Education's increase is significantly smaller than the town's increase. So as you discuss cuts tonight, I would just suggest that you keep that in mind. Also, the vote margins, where there are more people willing to get closer to pass on the education side than the town side. So if you could keep those things in mind. Thank you.
Hi, Jen Gagney from Center Village. I just want to remind the board that according to the charter, Section 5.3, duties and responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen shall direct and supervise the affairs of the town and be responsible for coordinating the activities of the officers, boards, commissions, and other agencies of the town. So yes, Art Gagney, as a selectman, does have a right to look into the Board of Ed, and which he has done for many weeks now, reading the curriculum and understanding what is going into the Board of Ed. So I just wanted to point out that he has every right to do that according to the charter.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if you don't mind, if I don't have to go down and back up, I can speak from here if that's possible. If I can speak from here, if that's possible.
Yeah, you were just muffled for whatever reason.
Okay. Kevin Cunningham, I'm trying to work together with all parties. Today we had a department head meeting talking about what cuts are possible. And I think it sounds similar to what the Board of Education is going through, where you get to the point where you're trying to take pennies here and pennies there. So it's not easy for either board. And I know it's not easy for the Board of Finance because they have to come up with an idea of what they think will pass and give that number to both of our boards. We were really pinching pennies and doing that throughout the day. I didn't come up with much. I want to thank all of our boards and commissions, all of our departments for coming up with these numbers. We just barely came up over $100,000. I'd also like to recommend that tonight I would also offer up about $200,000 of cuts right off the bat for the fund balance area to save us for the future. When we go back to looking at what we can make cuts for, that's definitely one thing I would like to do. I do want to mention something that this is a process we've gone through many years. Right now we're looking at the Board of Selectmen have put together a budget which is right now at a 3% increase, and then the Board of Education at 2.97. To make those cuts, you still have to come up with a number, and the number has to be something that comes from the Board of Finance to be able to put to the public. I do want to point out something that I'm going to offer as a possible resolution. We have been for years working on selling the iPark lot sales. That's a line item for your revenue that you've had for many years. We've concluded with all of those sales. What I would like to do is offer something else as an opportunity to put a revenue line in there. We have recently talked about selling the ECC building, and we have gotten a solid offer for the purchase and sale. That would have to be part of the discussion, not only for your budget to put that in there, but also for, if it's passed, then go to a town meeting. And I believe I'm starting to gain some ground with people to understand that as of right now, no one's come forward to say what they want to use it for. There's nothing there, which means that if you continue just to hold on to it, there's continued maintenance costs, there's continued future work that has to be done in that building, and we're holding on for what? I know there's another offer that's coming in tomorrow. I was called and told about that, but I do want to let you know that there's a reasonable offer for $1.325 million. If anybody wants to see it, I have a copy of the purchase sales agreement, but I would consider that if you were to able to put the sale of the ECC building as a revenue line for $1.1 million, and then you have some other small cuts, which I'm willing to offer as cuts, that you don't need the ECC maintenance anymore. The assessor appraisal came in at $5,000 less, and I already spoke today earlier with the police for cutting another $12,607 from the police pension. That brings you to a proposed adjustment for $1,184,828. And there's a reason why I come up with that number. It's because by putting that out there, you are able to then help and support what we're doing for the Board of Education. You can help and support what's going on for the town budget. You would also be able to make it so that the $0 million increase can go forward to the public. And I think that's something that definitely needs to be considered. I can go on and on about that at a future meeting, public informational meeting, and talk about that. I'm willing to share that information with everybody, talk about it publicly, meet with the purchaser, explain what they'd like to do, but I think it's something we should consider for the future. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, public comment's still open, right?
Yes.
Okay. I would just caution the board against considering revenue that is subject to a town meeting vote. If the revenue is not in your hand, I don't think you can count it in your budget. I think that's against good accounting practices. The finance director can verify that or not. But the sale of any town property, especially the ECC, is subject to a town vote. And also, when this item was brought up previously, there was quite feverish public comment against the sale of the ECC. So I would just caution the board again, once again, about counting those chickens before they're hatched. You shouldn't be offsetting our budget with revenue that does not exist. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I appreciate Kevin being creative. I do, honestly, I do. if you did something like that, again, you're right. Through the charter, you can't take a piece of fixed asset, put it in a budget, and expect to circumvent the process of selling real estate or property in the town of Plainfield, if it belongs to the town of Plainfield. My point is this, even if you could, you'd have a one-time revenue, right? What will you sell next year? What are you gonna sell next year? You see? That's part, you don't, I appreciate what you're doing here, honestly I do, but that's an offer, that's something you put out there, but it isn't something you're gonna realize. It's not gonna happen. The town don't wanna sell the building, they want the town to use the building. It'd be nice to get a tenant in there, but down the road, maybe they will. Or maybe they'll sell it, but I wouldn't balance a budget based on a fixed asset being sold. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I appreciate that, Paul, because it was something I forgot to mention. Allow me to add on to that. Worried about the concern of getting revenue to cover that loss for the next year. And just if I don't mention this, I'm remiss, but basically you have a Amazon building which is coming on. It is in addition to the town of Plainfield for taxes, addition to the $440,000 which is being paid right now. We believe that to be anywhere between $600,000 to $800,000 for the addition, especially if we get the vehicles. The second thing, we have E-Line coming on, and that'll be another $1.6 million as estimated by our tax assessor. Both of those will come on in the 26-27 budget year, so you have that all set right there.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond. Again, I'm not going to comment to that. What I want to comment to is it's time to look at the fund balance and cut some of this spending that's being appropriated here or being requested to be appropriated. We got to stop it, okay? We got to stop it. And there's places you can stop it. And I'm not, whatever First Selectman says, fine. But I'm telling you, you need to go to that fund balance starting tonight as a board. Let's start this process of backing back and depending on the fund balance. Thank you.
The ECC building, is it populated?
Is it what?
Populated, people in it.
No.
So it's an empty building. Sell the building. Do it. Get rid of it. Get the money. One big thing, and this is somebody should take note. The Government Accounting Standards Board, Statement 31. You cannot take unrealized gains and make proposals, budgets, investments, or other statements of financial position at any level, from a single person government to 2 billion, doesn't matter. You cannot put it on your books at all. It cannot be on any budget. That is government accounting boards. That's standard government practices. Point is, accelerate the sale of the building, balance the budget, get the BOE budget untouched, do what you need to do with other departments, but that is something that needs to be really considered. Thank you.
Matt Radan from Musa. I'll direct my question to the chair. Just a question in regards to new information from the first selectman. Is this being stated for us to believe that there's a material offer of 1.1 million on pending real estate? I can see a document, I'm just not sure.
I have a copy of a, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
We have a purchase and sales agreement right here. Make a copy if you like.
Thank you.
vote or need to get passed through some permitting process, and I think it's like 300,000 or something like that. So I don't want history to repeat itself, but I do agree, like, we've talked about this. I don't agree that, I agree that the ECC should be sold, but we're not using it, and there's other things, but we also need to educate people as to why. And there needs to be some information about why we need to do that. So whatever you do, that's great for you, but we didn't sell, we don't have an electric billboard, we didn't sell a cell phone tower. We need to just make sure that is there. We're risking a lot by putting revenue that we don't know. And we're leading up to a town of people who have a high of 11% voting, and that was only because we got them riled up with an opinion on the trash plan.
I think with the ECC building, I've sold real estate before, that can change, all right? You have a proposal, it's not a done deal. Can't look at money you don't have yet. That's number one. Number two, the town has clearly said they don't want to sell the ECC building. They would like to see something else done with it. All right, the fact that we keep trying to sell the ECC building because it's been vacated by the school is not, we've all clearly said we would like to do something different with the town hall. We'd like to see something different done with the ECC. All right, I think selling an asset that we have in town when we have so many needs, not wants, we have needs, okay? When we have that many needs, we need to think before we go selling our assets or keep trying to sell our assets. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, if not, I will close this portion of the meeting. One last call, anybody else for citizens participation? All right, we'll move on to our next item. But before we do, Samantha, I wanted to answer one of your questions.
Yes, thank you.
How does the fund balance grow? Okay, one of the ways that it grows is we budget certain revenues, and then we exceed those certain revenues. You know, I'll give you a couple of instances. This year on back tax revenue, we estimated we'd get $325,000.
Yep.
We've already collected 636, so we've exceeded that number by over $300,000. That goes to the fund balance. Another area is interest income. We estimated $200,000. We've already earned 580. So there's another 300, and those are part of the components that allows the fund balance to grow.
Awesome. I'm just taking notes. I apologize. I'm not like texting. I'm just taking notes. So.
No, I figured as much.
Thank you.
And if you go online, you should be able to get a current financial statement from the town, and if you look at the revenue lines, that will give you that
It'll
information.
show where it is. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Well, lots been said tonight. I thank you all for coming out. As been stated on several occasions, we do not have an easy job. We get to listen to a lot of contributions, and then we get educated ourselves. And so those of you that communicate with us, we really do appreciate it. But there are no easy decisions. One of the communications I received not too long ago was somebody telling me that when nobody's happy, you have a good compromise. We're kind of at an impasse. A lot of us listen to people either communicating to us through telephone calls or text messages, emails, or even live conversations. And unfortunately, it seems like we hear the people that agree with us more than we hear the people that don't. Or maybe we don't take enough time to listen to somebody that has a different perspective or a different opinion. And I think that's where we fall short. If we just talk to the people that agree with us, then we don't get a real picture of what is happening. We have to be aware of what our needs are, we have to be aware of what our wants are, and we have to be aware of what we can afford. And that is different for each and every one of us. And our job is to find a balance. We failed 2 referendums already. You know, so obviously we've started out too high, but what is too low? Where do we come to a point where all of a sudden we start cutting and we lose something that's important? We've already lost positions on the Board of Ed. We've already lost positions on the town side. At some point, we get to a situation where, why wasn't this taken care of? And the answer is, we don't have anybody to take care of it. While I realize that budgets are not easy and people struggle financially, the thing that puzzled me the most is most people do not understand what the mill rate is and how it affects their taxes. On the last budget proposal, a house that was assessed, not appraised, assessed, at $200,000 a year. Their taxes would have gone up, and Kelly, maybe you can help me with my math, $12 a month. That's $3 a week. That's one trip to Dunkin' Donuts. I've also heard the expression fixed income. Well, I'm there, but I do know that I had an increase in Social Security. Now, it's not an easy answer to any of these questions, okay? And I'm not being dismissive of anybody that's struggling, because one of the things that I saw that was cut, that if I had to say would not have been cut, was Project N. I think we have people in our town that need help. And it's up to us that don't need quite so much help to be willing to help those that do. So how do we do that? We find common ground. Some of the best conversations I've had over the last couple weeks are with people that you might think are diametrically opposed to me on the political spectrum. But I find that if we have an open conversation, we can find common ground and work from there. Mr. Rayton is absolutely right. We are running out of time, and we need to find a budget that can pass. The interesting thing is, he came with a number that I had in my head tonight, and that if we get to a 0.5 mill rate increase, or even a little less than that, 0.49, we have a good chance of passing. But we will only pass it if we educate the public. And that has been repeated throughout this whole process. What is it going to cost me? What am I going to get? You know what? We can't afford to lose any more police officers. I had an individual tell me not too long ago, I can defend myself, I don't need the police department. My response was, what about the other 98% of the people in the town? I've never had to call the police department to my house, gratefully. But I like knowing that I could if I needed. My kids are out of the school system, but I like the education they got. I like the experiences they got, whether it was in drama or music or some of these other things that they got to do. We keep cutting, you know, we're going to, and I'm speaking for myself, but if we keep cutting, we're going to have some serious problems. We're not going to start, we're going to lose, we're not going to be as attractive as a town for new businesses to come in. So I will put this out there that I think that we should move to cut an additional $375,000. That will bring us to a 0.49 mill rate increase, which brings our mill rate to 21.39. Kelly, if you correct, just double check my math. But it's up to, and if we decide to go with this, it's up to us in this room, everybody in this room, to get out and talk to people about the budget, what they get, how it works, And if we don't pass it, what we lose. Mr. Breton, how many positions are at risk right now? I believe you've cut some already.
I want to answer this earnestly. So when you say how many positions are at risk, if you take a look at what I've distributed and what's up there in front of you, you can see every position that was in our budget that we've removed. You can see whether or not they were proposed new positions or whether or not they were currently active positions. When you ask the question how many positions are at risk, it's a hypothetical. I don't know what my cut is going to be.
As of today.
As of today, how many positions have been cut since we started?
Yes, please.
Give me a moment and I'll answer that for you.
Mr. Selectman,
I
as of
counted
this
6
moment,
in a quick count.
how many positions have we lost in the town center?
We had proposed for 2 more, and those were cut.
Okay.
I'm being told 6.
I counted 6 as a
6.
quick count.
So you're telling, so that's 6 so far. A lot was said tonight, obviously because I've got 3 pages of notes, but that's good. I appreciate the contributions and the enthusiasm. I appreciate the passion. I appreciate those of you that, all of you that spoke, and especially those of you that had research with your information. Mary, you had a question?
No, she couldn't give you a full count because they didn't.
So I included in that count of 6 the 2 additional.
You said you didn't.
No, I said I did. I included in that count the 2 additional security guards that we would have been hired.
Okay.
So,
Security guards.
yes, safety.
All right. Those are my thoughts. I never claim to be the smartest guy in the room. I just try to be the most open-minded, try to listen, I try to treat everybody with the respect that they deserve. But we have a decision to make tonight. So at this point, I will entertain any comments from the remaining members of the board.
Are those 6 or 7?
It's 7.
7, that's what I was going to How many of those are currently employed here now that will be reduced, or that are just asks for additional staff?
When we make our cuts, I start with so that we're not paying unemployment either positions that are retiring or positions that are proposed. So when we take a look at those 7 positions that we have there, we've had 2 guards retire this year, or 2 guards leave this year. We have, as I noted in the last budget, about 6 people retiring. So to ask your question, we have 1 person on this list currently in a job who's losing a job.
So we're currently running with 7, we're currently running short those 7 people anyways.
We will be losing them this year through retirees or other things.
So they're not being replaced.
Correct.
But they're currently, there are people filling those roles currently.
Not the additional security guards, no.
Any other thoughts or comments?
I was questioning the police tasers. Where are they listed in the budget? Are they under their budget or are they in the fund balance portion? I'm sorry, the police tasers, are they in the fund balance portion or are they in the?
No, they're not, the taser's not fund balance, that was budget, was it?
That's correct. Tasers are from the training line item.
Should they be over?
They are not a one-time purchase. That is actually a taser program that is designed over the course of 5 years. They will be replaced if one's broken, a battery replaced, cartridges replaced. That is all a system designed over 5 years.
And how many SUVs are we currently getting? This sheet I'm looking at says 2. Is it 2 or 1?
So
Coming out of the fund balance?
the first selectman just initiated earlier, or stated earlier, that he's decreasing that by 1. So it was 2 in there, you'll see
So what
50.
failed was 2.
What's that?
What failed Monday was for 2.
Correct.
Okay. I still don't understand why we didn't have a use buildings and grounds truck when we bought 2 the last couple of years. I think that would be a savings right there. I also have concern about what Mr. Sweet had mentioned about whether we are the right body to appropriate money from the fund balance when it hasn't been requested by the Board of Selectmen. So have we done something wrong in our process? Do we need to stop and correct that before we can even approve this or push anything forward?
That's a good question. I wonder if the first selectman would comment on that for me, please?
I believe the governing body for the fund balance is actually the Board of Finance.
All right, could you say that again?
The governing body for the use of the fund balance is the Board of Finance.
But does the request have to come from the Board of Selectmen, or can the Board of Finance push it
Not
forward?
at budget time. I mean, I could be wrong, but not at budget time as far as I read.
I just don't want to get ourselves in legal trouble.
No, that's a great question.
So Kelly, the taser purchases, the chief said that that's not a one-time purchase, but neither is the police vehicle. We keep buying those out of fund balance year after year. Why can't the tasers come out of fund balance?
You really shouldn't be buying police cars every year out of fund balance.
Correct.
Just saying.
Right.
You really should. Anything that's repetitive year after year, that's an operating cost. It's not fund balance cost. If you buy, the same thing, say with a highway truck sometimes, if you buy a highway truck every year out of fund balance, that's repetitive. Nobody sees that stuff.
But it wouldn't be a year after year, it'd be every 5 years or so. And then any replacements or repairs.
That's beneficial. That would be beneficial if it's, a term, yes. Not repetitive every year, no.
I mean, tasers are important. If that's something that they're due to be replaced, we gotta figure out how we can figure that out. I don't know if that's not replacing all of them at once and doing staggered, rotate them in every couple of years, different months. Can the chief answer?
Chief?
So currently, we utilize roughly 5 tasers. They are probably dated from 2012-ish, and they get cycled through. So each officer is not assigned to a taser. They actually have to rotate it through shifts. This does the same thing, however, it keeps our software up to date with the current tasers. Tasers, we think it's just these 2 arrows that come out. There's so much inside it, we're computer-based, that needs to be updated, needs to be programmed. We in the event we use it, we download the data. It tells the officer how long he pressed the trigger for, how long or how many times he used the taser. There's so much information as it pertains to it. This right here is similar to like body cameras and the dashboard cameras. It's a 5-year program for replacement, and then in 5 years, we're gonna repeat the cycle. This is, to be honest, something that should have been done a lot sooner. But again, when it comes to cuts, we gotta figure out what we're going to do with cuts. And I understand that. Do I start cutting bodies before I cut tasers? So where do you draw the line? So this is a program, but it's only given roughly, just off the top of my head, maybe 5, maybe up to 6, with a spare. So if one's down, we automatically set it out, we replace it. It also covers our cartridges when we use them, as well as training cartridges. Hopefully that kind of clarified it a little bit.
So did you see anything when you were looking at the book, the charter?
It doesn't really, it speaks to written requests, but it doesn't specifically say regarding the budget. But it's worth getting better research on.
Problem is, we're gonna make a decision tonight, and if we get the research done after the fact, we could have made a big error.
Mm-hmm.
I wish this had been brought to our attention earlier, rather than doing something wrong.
Kevin, do you have a board of selectmen meeting after this?
Yes, it is.
So if he could appropriate at that time, the 1.2 million officially, you guys already approved it in the budget?
It's a special meeting.
Oh, special, sorry.
Yeah.
That was my thought.
Go ahead.
That, the Board of Ed and the selectmen, why can't they? Well, not gonna speak of that. That's fine. Why can't they just, make the requests? I think that would be the.
Because we're here tonight to push a number forward to them, and we really shouldn't be pushing a number forward if they've gotta go back and do their, to ask for that. It's backwards. I'm afraid we're gonna cause trouble.
Mr. Chair, I'm just having a hard time hearing anybody at that end without using a microphone. So if you wouldn't mind, would you repeat the concern?
I'm concerned that if we don't do this process properly, it's gonna come back to bite us in the butt in the end. We have to make a number tonight, but then I've also now learned that we might have a problem with the way we appropriate money from the fund balance, so we have to wait for you to make the request to use that money. So now what do we do? What's the procedure for this? Do we continue going forward and ask you to do it afterwards, and how does that look if there's a problem and somebody makes a complaint?
If you don't mind, I can answer that. Tonight's special meeting talks about any adjustments we have to make for the budget. That would include making a request to the Board of Finance. You have another meeting between now and Monday, a real quick one, or Monday early, you can actually approve that. That takes care of all your concern.
But an appropriation of that amount doesn't have to go to a town meeting?
It's part of the budget, that's why it's under this purview.
So it's part of the budget using a fund balance, and then the town votes on it as a budget, and they can see that's usage of the fund balance. So you don't have to do a referendum for that.
Yeah, no special meetings
Because
required.
you're voting on the whole thing.
So if I understand this correctly, that you have a special meeting tonight after this meeting?
Correct.
At that point, your discussion is based on the budget, and that is a component of the budget.
Correct.
And you would seek an appropriation approval from the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
Which would then require a special meeting from the Board of Finance to approve that. All right. Any thoughts from the board about that conversation? No,
mistake.
that's a good,
So that would be clearing up what we've already took out.
yeah, it was just make,
We're not adding anything.
no, it was just making sure that we're following a procedure that would otherwise be a problem.
We've been told twice already, and one time more than the other. No. We've been told no twice already, so we need to, I think we need to, make the increase way smaller.
Okay.
I've been thinking, looking at these numbers, maybe we get 1,400 people in the fan around, I guess it'll all go no again.
That's true.
And they time, the numbers get higher. They're telling us no. So, maybe, at first I thought maybe, like a half mil would work. I think maybe we have to go a little bit lower.
What do you say?
Maybe try 0.4.
0.4 mil increase? All right, are you putting that in a form of a motion?
What's that dollar amount wise?
Yeah, Kelly, are you, yep, she's working it now.
Would be 582,000.
582?
Yep.
How would you do the percentage?
Well, we're going to discuss this without a motion being made, because I do have some thoughts.
Well, we are discussing it. There's no motion currently.
Well, regarding the distribution of any cuts that might be suggested tonight, I think we have to look at the voter turnout that we had on the referendum. There were 29 people that, the difference between the school budget passing and not passing is 29 people, which is actually a swing of 15 votes. 15 people going the other way would have passed the Board of Ed budget. So I think it's important that we realize most of the town is speaking on behalf of the Board of Ed getting their money. That's all I have to say about it. I mean, I think that's way too high. The cuts that we're proposing tonight, I know these boards have, banged their heads against the wall trying to figure out where they're getting the money. And as far as the tasers, it's my understanding we can recommend how much money we want to give or don't want to give to the town. And the town has to decide, I believe, how much they're giving to the police department. And then we can't tell anybody how to spend the money anyway. I mean, they have a responsibility to be responsible, but we can't tell them to go spend X amount of money on tasers if they choose not to. So the point of all that is that I don't really think we're in a position right now to nitpick the budget. All the department heads came forward with every single line of money that they wanted. The girls in the office knew how much money they were going to spend on paper and toner. But that was 6-7 months ago. I don't think it's something that has to be rehashed tonight. What I'm saying is I think it should be I know we have to change the school budget because that's what the vote came out at, but I think it should be a very minuscule amount.
What's the number that you think the voters out there will pass? These 800 people on the first one, or these, 1,300 people on the second one?
I think a lot of those people turned out because they thought they were voting for the trash.
Taking that trash, all right, I'm just looking at the budget, that's when it comes.
So it question that you can't really theory and answer because more people voted yes also.
Right, yeah, they voted more on each side, because we have more people.
What's your question?
So, what's the number to make these people vote less no?
Believe me, if it was up to me, it would be like 100,000. I just think we're done. I think we carved up the,
So, we need to come up with that number, that, we know will pass.
I agree.
It could be anywhere from 0 to, where we are now.
I don't, can it be 0?
If these people say it can.
I'm saying 0. What's your,
I'm
my
not going
interpretation?
to go to 0, but.
My interpretation of 0 is no cuts. Your
Right.
interpretation of 0 is no increase on the mill, right?
No increase on the mill.
We're talking about two different zeros.
But, keep in mind, we still gotta run the business here, we still gotta run the town, we still gotta run the school.
Exactly.
So, but, what are the people gonna pay for?
My frustration, we're all volunteers, and it was wonderful that the townspeople came out and chose us to be the people that are gonna hopefully respond fiscally responsible, how to spend your money and my money. We've been at this 11 and a half months. What's frustrating to me, and I'm certainly not addressing anybody in this room, because you are the people that are actively involved. But even though I'm on the Board of Finance, I live in a condo building. So I get feedback whether I want it or not. Doesn't matter, I could have 2 armloads of groceries, and if they have an opinion, I have to stand there and listen to it. So I hear things in the town. Oh, they need to sharpen their pencil. The Board of Ed is like top heavy, and the town's top heavy, and what are they doing with the pool? The situation is that they didn't invest 11 and a half months asking all these questions as time went on. We did. We've sat and watched the Board of Ed make horrific decisions, watched the Board of Selectmen make hard decisions on where our money's going. My question to people that stop me is, what are you paying in taxes now? It's amazing how many people in this town, they don't know what they're paying in taxes. And then the next question is well, if the mill rate went up according to the referendum, how much would your taxes go up? People don't know the answer to that either. So when I'm sitting up here and I feel like we're taking out the knife and let's cut some more money, people don't know why we're doing it. If that makes any sense. I mean, I don't know how we can fix that, but I kind of feel like the tail is shaking the dog. We're the trusted servants. You guys don't like the decisions we make, well then, there's an election coming actually in November. And I'm not trying to sound flippant about that, but, Don said we have to have a meeting of the minds, but somebody said it tonight. We're going to end up with no town, a bunch of uneducated kids, and a skeleton police force, and I don't really think that that's what anybody wants. So, I think we really kind of need to, now I am speaking to the board, but I think we really need to hold a hard line. We need to say to the citizens, look, we need this amount of money to run. Case closed. I've watched everybody cut their budgets, we're not going to do this, we're not going to get this, we're going to eliminate this. If I had my way, we'd go to referendum with the same numbers we went Monday, but I guess we can't do that. So, that's all I got.
We went from about is this still on?
we went from about 7% turnout to 11% turnout between the two referendums. First referendum, it was 60-40, basically 60 against, 40 in favor of whatever we had proposed. The difference with the new voters was basically 60-40 the other way. To give you an example, there was, for the Board of Ed, there was an additional 453 votes cast prior to the first referendum. Out of that 453, 67.7% people voted for the Board of Ed budget. On the town side, 454 more votes cast. 61% of those new votes voted for the budget. On the Capitol, there was about 440. Out of that 440, 54% of the people voted for that capital plan. I think the recurring theme that we've heard tonight is education, education, education. Educate our students and educate our citizens. Can we get to a 0.5 and get that passed?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. I think they see in the budgets that's presented additional positions that they've seen, pay raises, and I think that's part of what's going on.
I guess the next question I would have, and I apologize for my voice, is that the cost of everything is going up. We can agree on that, right? Doesn't that include running a town?
We're not reducing the budget, we're reducing the ask, what they've asked for. It's not like we're cutting their money. The reason they're seeing less money in certain line items is because of the raises. The raises this year were very low. And some of the things that got approved through their contracts are really what's kind of hurting us. Because that was a big increase to it, and that's where we're losing it. On the town side, anyways. The Board of Ed, I think they're coming soon for their negotiations.
So the question becomes, where do we go?
I'm still curious as to what everybody's thoughts are on the percentages. I mean, now Linda's told us she doesn't want to see much cut out of Board of Ed. And I can,
the reason I say
I can kind of agree with that. But we have to, when we come up with a number, we have to figure out a percentage. So are we going 60% out of the town, 40% out of Board of Ed? What are we doing? That's my first question.
Well, my opinion on that is that's what we've done so far.
No, we did it reversed.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
The other thing that might help with getting the nuts budget passed is the residents need to see sacrifice. If we can get the elected officials to take a freeze this year, they would see that they're sacrificing. They would see that this budget is going to affect them. Right now, yeah, it's only a few dollars more, but your raises are offsetting that. So I think that would be like an olive branch to the residents to make them feel better with approving it. And I'm not sure that we'll ever pass this budget from the feedback I'm getting from the residents I've talked to when they keep looking at that and they see they're getting raises. Because they want them to feel it as much as they're going to feel it. But unfortunately, we don't have the ability as a board to say, this is what you got to cut. Which is really kind of tying our hands. All we got to do is come up with a number hope that they cut what we want to cut, or where we think it should cut. I mean, the fund balance balance usage also, that's been failing pretty significantly as far as for the capital expenses. So maybe we need to cut trim, maybe some of that has to go away. The first selectman mentioned that he had some numbers of possible cuts. I'd be curious to hear what they are or see what they are.
I believe it was mentioned on the town side, there was like 200,000 that could cut off the fund balance and another additional 100,000 that could be cut other places. Is that correct, Kevin?
Correct.
How much is that, Dean?
That's 300,000.
No.
But the 200,000 doesn't go towards the mill rate.
Okay.
Fund balance doesn't count towards your budget.
Thank you.
Capital frame.
Dean? Some disparity between what you're saying and what Kevin's saying.
Can you repeat that, please, Kevin?
Sure. Just to be clear, we were looking at maybe $100,000 to cut from our budget. We talked about the possibility of cutting another $200,000 from the fund balance section. Fund balance section is not part of your annual operating budget. It's just kind of straight from the fund balance. It just gets approval from the residents.
I know I've heard a lot of complaints about moose of sidewalks, to be honest with you, which, whatever, moose of Memorial Park, curbing and sidewalks. I had somebody complaining about that today. Why are we spending stuff like on that? We've got needs, and we're doing wants.
Isn't there a grant from here for sidewalks?
It's listed in the fund balance
Are sidewalks
usage.
like a grant that we
It's
get?
not,
Capital.
no, it was a cutout to bring equipment into where the gazebo area is.
It's a curb cut
Yeah.
for $17,000, and that's one of the items I have in my $200,000 to cut.
Well, that's going to help, because like I said, they're looking at our numbers, and they're seeing these things, and they're kind of, that's part of why we get into trouble, because they see some of these other things, and they want it gone. They don't feel that this is the year for doing this. They want us to tighten our budgets.
I'm hearing they don't want to cut from the police department.
I'm hearing that too.
They want the SRO, they want the town to be properly policed and safe.
I don't think I've heard one person honestly say that they wanted the SRO to be removed from the budget.
I'll say it.
Removed?
No, removed. Oh, I thought you said, no, I thought you said that they want it. I want him. Sorry, misunderstanding. Total misunderstanding.
All right, thank you.
I want him and I want three. I want three. I thought you said that.
So my thought is, I hope that, listening to the feedback I've heard, I hope that they don't feel that that's the cut that they do. That's all right, but that should be done.
Can we get the SRO and the tasers cut?
That's not how you can, because that's a salary.
Part of the SRO, could possibly, because there's one-time expenses for the equipment. But the salary is going to be a recurring, and that can't be because it's a salary. Did you have a thought, John?
Point four, we cut 582,000.
Yep.
Get the point.
Take out 582,000 and split it 60/40. So I got 60% down and 40%.
Can I
That's a .25?
3.5.
3.
No, I'm curious, the 60/40 split, what that would end up being. 582, we put 60% of that onto the, what's that?
349 and 232 or 233.
349,200.
But the total's gonna be 582, isn't it? Or are you just doing 500?
I
I
did
did 600.
580,000. You want 582? I
580?
did 582,000 times 60%. So that was 349,200.
Oh, okay.
Before we were talking about .49, which was 375.
My concern with the thought of 225,000 from the town is that it's going to affect our police department. And that's just not something I'm comfortable with. I don't think I can vote on that. I just want to make that clear. I don't think that we can cut more than, the number I have come up with is 187,500 from the town. I know
Does it have to come from the police department?
I don't think that's what we'll have. Yeah. I know they're a big percent of our budget because we need them, and I just think it's important to protect that.
Well, I think they can take it right out of the rec department.
I'm sure they'll have cuts too.
Well, recreation, that's a lot. Police department is a need.
Correct.
My thought was, if we did, what was it, 375,000, doing a 50/50 split, because we normally take 60 from the school and 40 from the town, so we would be adjusting. We could make it 187,500 from both. I don't think it's good for either, but that's where we're at with the vote.
What are you talking about? That's what you were saying.
Sorry, I'm saying if we go with the 375,000 in cuts to get us to the .49, I think it should be a 50/50 split, because we normally take 60 from the school and 40 from the town, so we would be adjusting that to go 50/50.
I just think we take into consideration that the school vote was so very close. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to cut them that much. We're agreeing and disagreeing at
I
the
know,
same
it's
time.
hard.
I'm not sure that .19 is a yes there, to be honest with you.
I'm still on 2.35.
Yeah.
Yeah, 0.35.
So how would you take that, Lynn?
What's the .4? What would that number need to be? .4 would be 507.
400 and
Being 507.
So if we did $500,000 reduction, 3 feet down, 2 feet. I was just pulling out simple numbers. I was dropping 7 off, making it 500 for our math. They already are. They're paying $100,000. They're taking $100,000 here to cover it.
We went 375 cut. That would bring the mill rate to 21.39. A house assessed at $200,000, their taxes would increase by $8 a month.
People are hung up on that
Outside.
percentage.
What's that?
People are hung up on that mill rate number. They're not looking at the dollar cents.
And I think to the point that's been made several times throughout the night, is that we need to educate the folks. I mean, whether it's in conversation, text message. I mean, we've even learned some stuff tonight.
You also gotta realize, things aren't as good as people think right now. Things aren't as good as people think right now. I had to say goodbye to 6 coworkers last Friday. They got laid off.
But
They
Sean,
cut my crew in half.
But,
as Dean just pointed out, I mean, we're talking $8.
$8 is $8.
Yeah, $8 is probably in my pocket, and I'm a senior citizen.
Not if you're, that's good.
I mean, that's, I appreciate that point, Sean, I really do. But that would apply to the town too. I mean, whether it's another teacher, police officer, or a part-time staff person, we've got to find a balance. We've got to educate our public. We've got to tighten our belts too. I mean, there's some cost sharing that could still be investigated. And we can't count on things that we don't have in our pocket right now. Will the .49 increase pass? I don't know. I'd like to think so, but I don't know that for sure.
It might have earlier on. I think now that we're later into the process, I think people are just gonna hold their own. Unless you can get more people out to vote for it, I think it's gonna get harder. Yeah, I think we gotta go a little bit below that somehow.
All right, well, if we went to the 507, that's a .4, that brings us to 21.30. That's a .4.
What's the dollar amount on that, Dean?
507,000 brings us to a .4 mill rate increase, 21.30. The individual who has a house that's assessed at $200,000 would be paying $6.66 a month in addition, in taxes, more than they are paying.
I think that would apply.
You think that would apply?
I think that would apply. I could be wrong.
No. Really?
That happened.
Didn't that happen in 2019? You were wrong about something?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's when you said I like working with this guy. So, let me repeat that. 507,000 additional cuts brings the mill rate increase to .4, a new mill rate of 21.30. The taxes on a house assessed at $200,000 would go up $6.66 a month.
$72 a year.
Yeah, they're just about, thanks.
I think it's
So we can,
Break it out. Take it out of her pocket.
I'll take it.
put that, 60/40,
All right, a 60/40.
60 on the town, 40 on the town.
300, 200,
Something like that.
yeah, something like that.
What was it?
300, 200.
Excuse me, can you recalculate the amount of increase, given the median assessment of our
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
domiciles?
But you're out of order.
Chairman.
It's a great question, but to her point, you're actually out of order. Sorry. But that is a great thought. So if we reduce the budget by an additional 507,000, we could split that 304 for the town, 207 for the Board of Ed. That brings the new mill rate increase to .40, bringing the mill rate to 21.30.
Can you recheck your math?
On which part?
This divide. You did 304 to the town, 207 to the
Oh, I'm
Board of
sorry,
Ed.
203, thank you.
202,800.
Or we could just call it 500.
What's the average house in town, property tax in town?
About 300,000.
About 300?
Yeah.
300,000.
The average house is what?
It's about 300 after you just had a reval. So it's more. Like back when it used to be 200, now it's more just because of revaluation.
So if the average appraisal, I use 200, you use 300, we would multiply that increase by 1.5, we would get $9.99. Is that helpful?
A month?
A month. Sorry.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear you, Mr. Gorman.
About $108 a year.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we gotta do something.
What's that?
Unfortunately, we have to do something.
Yes. How does everybody feel about the 507 on the commissioner feedback?
I just don't see how the town would be able to cut it. If we made them do 60%, how would we possibly do that? Do you know what their increase is in dollars, even versus last year? Like, I feel like we're getting close to where we're just not even having an increase.
That I don't know off the top.
I believe,
It'd be 103,000 more compared to last year.
that's what's on the,
If you cut 304 from us now.
okay, yeah. It would only be an increase of 100,000 versus last year. That's getting contractual raises. We're gonna be going into having less than we did the year prior.
Right.
And I just don't think that's fair.
But like Linda said, you got the lot and the recreation.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments? Would anybody like to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make it.
Of what?
We'll just bring it down to, I'll make a motion to cut this number here, 507.
Yep. Okay.
With 60% coming from the town, 40% coming from the school.
Okay.
Bring it milk, could bring the mill at 20.
Right. So we have a motion on the floor to cut an additional 507,000, 60% being about $304,200 in the town, $203,800 from the school. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Don and seconded by Sean. Any other discussion?
What was the dollar amount you said was cut from the town and the school?
$507,000 total, 304, using a 60/40 percentage, $304,200 from the town, $203,800 from the Board of Ed. Motion Motion made by Don, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? That motion does not carry.
So can I ask what everybody's thought is? Were we too high or too low? What they voted now?
It's too much.
It was too low. I would like too much of a cut. I think a .49 is a good spot in between what we could get to pass. And I'm just not comfortable cutting more than 200,000 from the town.
For me, the 1.2 million on the fund balance is that's the ticket for me. The mill rate's gone.
Lynn, why too low?
I don't like the previous cuts, you know. I know it's a big part of the budget, but I don't like to see it go for education.
The problem is we can't dictate what we cut.
Right, we don't,
The board of
can't
selectmen's
tell
gonna
them
do
what
that.
to, right, I know.
So let's just entertain the 375. What would you cut? What would your split be there?
Well, 60/40 is 225 and 150.
What would the percent split be if we only did a $200,000 cut from the town?
That would be 53.
53%?
So you're talking 275, 200 from the town and 175 from the board of ed?
Yes.
Why did we change it? We had agreed on 60/40.
Because I never agreed to that. Why I brought it up?
She was uncomfortable with that much coming out of the town side. She wanted to keep it at 200,000. It's just discussions.
I'm sorry, what?
No,
Not what?
no, no.
Listen to conversation.
All right, so the number being discussed now is 375,000. With 200,000 from the town, 175 from the board of ed. That's a .49 increase, bringing the new mill rate to 21.39. It is not a motion, it's just a matter of discussion.
I think that would still, the town would only be increasing by 200,000 versus last year. If we do that.
If we split it down the middle, it would be 187,500 each.
I say we run it with a 60-40 split. It's 4-9 mil.
What was that?
I say we run it with the 375 with the 60-40 split. 225 from the town, from the school. See what it does.
So 225 for the town, 150 for the school.
I personally would like to see that drop a little more. I mean, we gotta figure out something that's gonna actually move along tonight.
Are you going to make a motion?
I don't know that I want to, because I still want that mill rate to be lower. But that might, if somebody was to make that motion, it might make it true.
We'll have to make a motion for it
Okay.
at this point. I think that's a middle ground that we're gonna come on, that's something that potentially the board might pass and our town.
All right, so,
But I definitely have concerns about how much we're cutting from the town, but I don't see us getting anywhere.
okay.
And
So are you going to make a motion then?
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be to go to the .49 mil increase, which would be 375,000 in cuts with a new mill rate of 21.39. We'd be cutting 225,000 from the town and 150,000 from the Board of Ed.
Okay. Motion has been made by Stephanie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Stephanie. Linda, I'll just put your name on there. Was that you? Okay.
I did.
Okay. All right. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, 375, the additional reduction, 225 coming from the town, 150 coming from the BOE, for a mill rate increase of .49. Motion has been made and seconded. Do I have any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion does not carry.
I'd say I agree with it. You just need to push something through.
So, but the question then comes, for those that didn't, what was the concern?
Too high mill rate.
I think the mill rate is still
Still too high?
Still too high.
425. There's a mill rate increase of 0.45. And we're at 21.39 with the 375. 425 brings us to 21.35.
What was the dollars total?
425,000. So you could just double check this.
I was thinking 250 town, 175 board.
Kelly, we have a new number. You could just double check our math, please. 425.
It would be 0.45, so you would, it would be 0.45. 0.45 mil increase, and then,
So everybody's following that?
All right, so the new number is 425,000 in reductions, bringing the new mill rate increase to 0.45, bringing the mill rate to 21.35. Sean, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for a reduction of 425,000, set the mill rate increase to be 0.45. We set the mill rate at 21.35. 250 from the town, 175 from Board of Ed.
Okay. Motion has been made by Sean. Did everybody hear it? Did anybody not hear it? All right, do I have a second? I'll repeat the motion. More is for additional cuts of $425,000, $250,000 from the town, $175 from the Board of Ed, bringing the mill rate increase to 0.45 with a new mill rate of 21.35. Motion has been made by Sean. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Motion made by Sean, seconded by Linda. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by raising your hand. Motion does not carry.
Too much or not enough?
It's too much?
I mean, the mill rate's too much.
Mill rate, okay.
Yeah, clarify. The mill rate's too much. I don't think it'll pass.
certain things and hang other things out to dry. That's my problem.
Has the town eliminated any positions that are currently filled?
Kevin, is the town going to have to eliminate any positions that are currently filled?
I can't answer that because I can't speak for the other board members.
As of right now?
Actually, repeat that?
As of this moment?
The whole question?
Yes. Will the town have to eliminate any positions as of this moment before?
Again, I don't know until you give me a number and then we have to talk
No,
about.
up to this point.
Oh, previously? Yeah, we had eliminated some other functions. We wanted to have another highway staff, we wanted to have another maintenance for the town area, so those two eliminated off the top.
Those would be new hires that were removed from the budget.
Kevin, those are new hires that are removed from the budget?
Those two new hires, yes.
Yes. Motion that was on the table did not pass. It's $425,000. Do we have any new thoughts or suggestions?
My thought on this, and something that I would vote on, would be if we changed it to the same mill rate that we were just going with the .45, but take the $225,000 from the town and $200 from the school. So that would be .45 increase, or yeah, and new mill rate of 21.35 with $425,000 in cuts.
Okay. Do you want to state that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, does anyone else want to say something first? Yeah, I could say that as a motion. I'd like to make a motion to increase the mill rate by .45, which would put it at 21.35 with $425,000 in cuts, $225,000 coming from the town and $200,000 coming from the school.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'm gonna second it.
Okay.
Stephanie,
Mhm.
the cut, and that's what her and I are banging heads about. But if this is a number that's gonna, pass, I guess what bothers me is, that everybody has short memory. The mill rate went down much.
No,
And the year before that.
the year before it was down.
But because of the reevaluations though.
But,
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that the taxes went up because of the reval. That's just part of life.
It also went up because of the spending went up too. The spending has not been curbed at any
and
point.
the mill rate went up 0.11 last year. Yeah. But I see your point.
Anyway, I did second it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for 425,000 in cuts, 225 coming from the town, 200 coming from the Board of Ed, bringing the mill rate increase to 0.45 with a new mill rate of 21.35. Motion is made by Stephanie and seconded by Linda. Any other discussion? At this time, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by raising your hand. The motion does not pass. Oh, you did? Oh, you didn't take your hat off. I couldn't see your hand. All right, so that motion passes.
Yeah.
4 to 3. All opposed? All right, no abstentions. Why don't you get him higher? All right, at this time, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Lynn, do I have a second? Seconded by Sean. All in favor, signify by saying aye.